just wanted to say a side note, testing a theory right now. I think that with TikTok and YouTube shorts and this kind of short form content, that people are going to start making more content that makes more sense to shoot on your phone in up and down 9x16. So could be wrong, but go and quote me on that. We'll see where we are in a few months and see if I'm wrong or not. Probably more like 3 to 6 months. But anyways, guys, let's talk about what is a super important and super serious topic. And I believe a topic that is probably the most serious sin in all of Christianity. I will explain why that is. So one of them, I don't want to say that. I don't like being that guy that's like the most biggest, baddest, yeah, whatever. Let's jump into it. Sexual immorality and pornography, any of these kinds of versions of sexual immorality are super dangerous. And Scripture says it's because it's the only sin that is done against your body. Here's what it means by that. This is a physical act done by your body to your body. And this is not one of those things that is relevant in something like pride. Pride is not something that is physically done to a body at all. It is an act of attitude, right? But it has nothing to do with a physical anything. There's nothing physical about pride. But there is physical about sexual immorality. And this physical nature of sexual immorality, it takes so many Christians and it takes them so off course and for such a long period of time. And I'm going to explain why I believe that is. Because why is it that when people have bursts of anger, or they're just continually angry people, why is it that it doesn't have the same kind of repercussions as sexual immorality does? Well, here's why. Sexual immorality is one of those things. It's really interesting because sex and sexuality is not a bad thing. Sexual immorality is a bad thing. What's the difference between sexuality and sexual immorality? Well, the only difference is that it's sexuality used in a way that it ought not to be used. That's the only difference with it. So sexuality, me being attracted to somebody who's the opposite gender of me, is not sin. What's a sin is when you do something with that you're not supposed to do with it, right? So there's plenty of people right here who are heterosexual, attracted to somebody of the other gender. The idea of having a desire for somebody of the opposite gender is given to you by God. But God has asked you to do something very specific with that desire. And you living outside of God's will in regards to that desire is the actual issue at hand. People are choosing not to use it in the way that it was actually designed to be used. And since they're not doing that, they're facing the negative repercussions of that. Now, to go on top of that, I also want you to consider the seclusion of sexual immorality. When you think of things sexually related, and when it comes to pornography, when it comes to sex before marriage, things like that, these are not things that are done publicly, right? You're not publicly watching pornography. You're doing this alone in your bedroom, in your closet, in your bathroom, whatever it is. You're doing this alone in secret and private where nobody can see or hear what you're doing. Same thing with all other sexual acts. I'm not going to get explicit on this. You guys, you're big boys and girls. You know what I mean. So it's something that's done in private. When you're getting angry, it's not done in private. People get angry right in front of people. Dude, I'm so mad about that. Dude, screw you. I can't believe you just said this. I can't believe you just said that. So anger is something that's not correlated to that because anger is something that's publicly done. Pride is something that's publicly done. Lying is something that's publicly done. Sexual immorality is privately done. And the reason this is important is the enemy uses the fact that it's a private thing, which again is supposed to be private. It's sacred, right? Sexuality is supposed to be a private, sacred thing between a man and a woman who are married. But when you're doing these things and you're in the sexual genre still, when you're still in that camp and you're doing these things in private, then it allows this idea of seclusion. Seclusion's a very dangerous thing, and when it comes to any sin, because it allows you to continue to live in it. If I see you getting angry right now, if I see you being prideful right now, I can say, hey, bro, so like, I love you, man, and that's why I care about even saying this kind of thing to you, but like, man, I think you got anger issues, dude. Like, you just freaked out on that person, and they just kind of like cut you off in traffic a little bit, like, and you're screaming at them in your car and like cussing at them in the whole nine. Like, bro, you need to really check your heart in those things. Well, it's easy for me to correct somebody now. How do I correct somebody's sexual morality? The only way I can correct sexual morality is if it's admitted or I physically see it somehow, and there's really no way I'd be able to physically see it somehow unless there's like some slip up of you showing something on your phone that you shouldn't have shown or something like that. But by and large, the only way that anything like that is going to be seen is if it's admitted. So it's very easy to stay in private about this. Because again, remember, it's supposed to be private anyways. Sexuality is supposed to be a private investment. It's not supposed to be something that's public for all the world to see. So if that's the case, and you're doing a private sin, you can stay in this spiral. And then what happens is this really interesting thing where you'd failed. So therefore, you feel really condemned about the fact that you failed. And now you're ashamed to say anything to anybody because no one knew anyways. So then what do? You stay secluded. Well, what do you do in your seclusion? Be sexually immoral. So what does that make you do? Feel even more condemned. What do you do when you feel more condemned? You get even more secluded. Do you see the point? It's this spiral down that just keeps you further and further away from people, more distant from people, and so on and so forth, all because of what you let in. Scripture says the eye is the lamp of the body, and if the light that is in that goes into the eye is bright, then how great is that brightness? But if the light that comes into the eye is dark, then how great is that darkness? When we have darkness coming into our eye, it floods the body. Scripture says it floods the body. And that light that was supposed to be light, but is actually darkness, is making our entire body darkness now because of what came through just the eye. The eye is the lens of the body. And when we let bad things come into here, it floods the whole body with either positive things or negative things, righteousness or sin, right? To make it more spiritual. So you have a choice to make in regards to continuing to live in this or not, obviously. So what is the solution? What does Jesus say the answer is? Well, Scripture makes really clear and plain what the answer is, and that is, if your hand calls you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you, for it's better to enter heaven without a hand than hell with your whole body intact. And it says, you've heard of the prophets of old, do not commit adultery, but I say whoever's looked upon a woman to lust after her has committed adultery already with her in his heart. So if you didn't know the definition of sexual morality, anything where you're attracted to somebody else and you're doing something in context of fantasizing from that, anything that is not, anything that's sexual outside of marriage is sin. Pornography, fooling around before marriage of any sort of capacity. All these things are considered sin in God's eyes. And you living in those things is causing you a tremendous amount of challenge. Odds are the majority of people who are watching this and have seen the headline, the thumbnail about pornography, is watching this in context of pornography more than dating in a relationship or whatever. So here's my challenge to you. The obvious is stop watching what you're watching. Obviously, I didn't need to tell you that. You knew that answer before you even clicked on this video. But what I do want to say to you, what I do want to challenge you with, is what is it that's triggering you to get you to this point? Is it that you are looking at girls that are not dressed as they should on Instagram? Is it you're watching TikToks where women are dancing inappropriately? Is it because you're watching movies where in these movies you see some inappropriate things happening? Is it because you're listening to music that is not honoring God, but is talking about all these fine girls dancing around? Unfortunately, I just sadly saw a Christian show and, a Christian song. And this Christian song is talking about the same concept. It's talking about the dude had Snoop Dogg. I'm not trying to call the person out, but this famous Christian rapper had Snoop Dogg on one of his songs, which I already was like, obviously he's not a born-again believer, which is fine. I don't mind a Christian doing a song with a non-Christian, whatever, the whole collab thing and getting them in contact with other people, that kind of thing. Yeah, I get, get the concern there, but something that is entirely not honoring to God. It is extremely, extremely challenging for me to justify when somebody's listening to something like that and, coming to a point where they're living in this sexual immorality and sexual sin, but they're listening to all the stuff that is in the context of sexual immorality. It's like, well, no wonder you're living in sexual sin. It's because you're listening to all these things and you're letting things in that is causing you to go down this road. Some people, it's just boredom. They're just sitting in their bed alone at 8 p.m. at night and they've got hours to kill before they're actually going to go to sleep. Cool. What's the solution to that? I mean, really simple, application, get out of the house, go on a walk, go drive somewhere, go to the grocery store, don't buy anything, don't waste money, but just do something to get yourself out of the circumstance, because that's what Jesus means by if your hand calls you saying, cut it off and cast it from you. It's better to enter heaven without a hand than hell with your whole body intact. I'm actually about to make a totally free Christian course on this topic of sexual immorality because I'm so passionate about it. There's so many people who are struggling so severely with it. So appreciate you all. Love you all. Stay tuned for that. Again, totally free. I just want to help you guys get free. Chat soon.